So in previous lectures, we have seen what is a language, then what is programming language, then need for programming language, role of programming language. And yesterday we have seen different generations. First generation is called generation machine language. Then second generation is assembly language. Third generation onwards, we have high level languages. In fourth generation, high level language with less code and more specific to the problem. And fifth generation languages are called declarative languages. We have gone through this like high level language, then low level language, and executable machine code. Machine understands only the language of zeros and ones. We have seen the example of machine language, zeros and ones, and this is what high level language instruction means. It is very difficult to read, write, debug machine language code. So in assembly language, the zeros and ones are converted to some human readable codes, which are called operational codes or opcodes. For example, instructions like add means addition, or sub means subtraction, multiplication, like this. So that was more readable, like move, M-O-V. Move command is used to move value in this register. It will move value 15 into R3. STR is a string. Store instruction. It will store this value of R3 into that register. Like this. This is load instruction and store instruction.
Ma'am?
And yes?
Ma'am, you are not audible.
You're audible, ma'am.
Ma'am, you are audible.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So assembler is used in second generation to translate assembly language program into machine language. Then we have seen difference between machine level and assembly level language. High level language like C, C++, Java, this code gets translated by a compiler into object code. Object code is nothing but intermediate code. It is also it is an assembly language code. And then we have linker, loader, and assembler, which will convert this assembly language code into machine readable form, that is binary language, or it is called executable code. Then you can differentiate between low level language and high level language. Low level languages are machine friendly, more close to the machine. And high level languages are user friendly. It is like English like language. This should be, this is wrong here. Low level language should be fast because they are directly loaded into main memory and ready for execution. But high level languages need to get translated into low level language and then execution starts. So high level languages takes time to execute. This should be reverse. I'll modify it and then again share it with you. Tools required, it requires assembler to convert assembly language to machine language. It requires compiler or interpreter to translate the code and execute. Portability, assembly language programs or low level language programs we have seen yesterday, they are machine dependent, means depending upon that particular hardware. So it is not portable, means once program you have written on one machine, it is not executable on any other machine. But high level language programs are portable. See, portability and platform independence are two different words. Like you can write C language program at your place and you can execute in college labs, right? So that is portability. You can write anywhere, you can modify, execute at any other machine, which the specifications are not matching with each other. But when we say it is machine independent, means it is independent of hardware, software, operating system, and number of processors. For example, Windows program can easily run on Linux programs. This is not true with C and C++. C program which can execute on Windows machine will not execute on Linux machine, because C language programs are portable but not machine independent, like Java. Memory efficiency, yes, low level languages are machine efficient because they are directly loaded into machine hardware registers. It is less memory efficient. We are using stack memory or heap memory. We'll come to that. You'll understand what are different types of memories used by a program while in execution. Debugging is not easy in low level language. Now, what is debugging? Error checking part. And it is very easy in high level language programs. Then let's move towards programming language paradigm. I want to show you another PPT. First, we'll see the complete picture. So programming language paradigm. Paradigm, this word means classification, but it is not hard and fast classification. That means once you divide it in one type, it doesn't mean that it is not possible to divide it in another data type or another class. So language can show characteristics of different classes. So language can belong to more than one paradigms. Paradigms means classification based on characteristics. So there are mainly two types of language paradigms, imperative and declarative. Imperative means it focus on how program is written, how it will execute. For example, C++ we called as procedural programming or sequential programming. Program executes line by line, one line at a time, right? So it depends upon how program executes. The keyword is how. And in case of declarative programming paradigm, it depends upon what you want to execute, what problem that you want to solve. So it depends upon a problem, not on a language. So type of problem will decide a language. So that is called declarative programming. In case of procedural imperative programming, there are three different subtypes: procedural, object oriented, and parallel processing. In case of procedural, you have studied this example of C language. C is called procedural programming. There is one more procedural programming language, means there are many procedural programming languages other than C, but as a specific example of procedural programming, but which shows different structures, which is called block structured language, that is Pascal. Pascal is also procedural programming, but it has a nested. You can write a function inside a function. Like in C language, in main you can call a function input, and input function you have to write outside the main, not in the main, right? But in case of Pascal, you can write function inside a function. So it is called block structured language. So these are the examples of procedural paradigm. This in this case, statement executes step by step. Next type is block object based and object oriented. Initially there were only object based languages like Ada. Then many features are added like polymorphism, inheritance, encapsulation. So now that paradigm is called object oriented. As the name says, it is oriented across the object. Object is the main concept, and this language is built around that object. Examples of object oriented programming is C++ and Java. Third part in imperative paradigm is parallel processing, or it is also called concurrent processing. Execution happens in a parallel way. For example, Ada and Java. Note that Ada comes under object based as well as parallel processing. Java is also object oriented as well as parallel processing. So that is imperative paradigm, imperative programming. And declarative means how program, what is the problem. So if problem is rule based, you can go for logic programming paradigm. Example is Prolog. This is the short form for programming logic. This is the language Prolog. It is mainly used for expert systems, decision making systems. Like if you want to build an application for disease diagnosis, for telemedicine, you ask patient what are the symptoms, and depending upon symptoms you want to suggest a medicine. So that is decision making. Do you have cold, do you have running nose, or do you have fever? So you'll these symptoms, and you will differentiate between whether this is a normal flu, cold flu, or it is a malaria, like this. So such decision making systems, it is easy to build with Prolog like languages. Next declarative paradigm example is functional. Lisp is functional paradigm, Python is functional paradigm, even C is also part of functional programming. In C language, everything is a function, even printf, scanf, main, say exit, all these are functions. So it is a functional programming paradigm. And next is database programming paradigm, SQL, that is structured query language. To build any database system like student database, employee database, you want to write a software for bookstore or whatever the system you want to build which has a data backend, then you can go for a database language like structured query language. So this is an overall picture of programming language paradigm. Imperative, declarative. Imperative means how program executes. If it executes sequentially, it is called procedural programming. If it is object based, then it is object oriented. And parallel processing, if program is executing parallelly, multiple things are happening parallelly, then it is called parallel processing or concurrent. And declarative focuses on a problem. If problem is logical, you have to go with logic programming, then functional and database. We'll see it one by one, programming language paradigms. So traditionally, programming languages are divided into two broad groups. Traditional programming languages, which is sequence of instruction, that is imperative language. That is first, second, and some third generation languages are imperative languages. And then object oriented, objects are created rather than sequence of instructions. And some third generation, fourth and fifth generation languages are object oriented languages. So when we say programming language, as the language, if there is a language, there should be some grammar. Means a compiler should able to decide whether this sentence is correct as per the grammar or not. Will this statement will execute and produce proper result or not? So when it comes to mechanics of a task, learning to speak and use a programming language in many ways, like learning to speak a human language. So in both kind of languages, you have to learn new vocabulary. So in case of programming language, what you have to learn, what is the character set, what are the different programming components like if loop, for loop, while loop, that language supports. Syntax, that means the grammar of that language, what is the syntax of for loop, while loop, do loop, how to define a class. In C++, we put semicolon at the end of class definition. Here, a semicolon is not required. In C language, main can be anywhere, or in C++, main can be outside a class, but in Java, main should reside in a class. So that is called syntax. And semantics means logic. So you have to learn before starting programming in any language, what is a character set and programming language components. So what is a good language? How you are going to decide which language is good for your project? So previously, the good language was decided by its runtime performance. Formally, it was runtime performance. Give the same data to in different programming languages and check whether how much fast you get the output, how much memory it is utilizing, how much space number of lines of code, that matters. Means time complexity, space complexity, etc. So computers were more expensive that time than a programmer. So runtime performance matters. But now, we are carrying in our pocket 128 GB pen drives, and it is very cheap nowadays. So currently, human cost is more important than machine cost. So programming language, the idea of good programming language is changed. The language that supports ease of designing and coding, it gives an easy access, or programmer the environment which is suitable for a programming, like it provides editor, then compiler, then debugger, everything should be in hand with a programmer. Ease of designing and coding, debugging facility should be there, then maintenance and reusability. So all these things comes with IDE, integrated development environment. Then only that language you can say it's a good language. So previously, these were the characteristics of good programming language. So when you have to make a choice between, you have 3 or 4 languages available, and you have to choose a good language for your project. So these are the criteria based on what you will choose a particular language. For example, writability. So what is meaning of writability? Writing ability. So if I give you an algorithm and I ask you to write a C program, so should be easy for you to convert that particular algorithm or flowchart into a given programming language. For example, in my flowchart there is a cycle, so you need to use iteration. Iteration means loop. So there should be facility provided by a programming language like looping facility. So writability means whatever the algorithm is, it should be converted into the programming language. Language should be so vocabulary should be so depth that you should able to choose proper constructs for that particular logic. Next criteria is characteristic is readability. As the name says, program should be more readable. So I'll give you one example. In programming language called PL, there is a statement like this. Can you read this statement and what it means? If equal to the else, then if equal to then, else then equal to if. So in this language is called PL. This was very old programming language. In this language, there were no keywords or reserved words. Like in C language, we have the concept of keywords or reserved word. Can I declare while as my variable name or if as my variable name in C language? No. So it doesn't allow me to define variables or keywords or reserved words as a variable name. But in this language, there were no variables. Suppose if I write this sentence in C language, it will be like this. If A equal to B, then A equal to C. Else C is equal to A. Now, is it readable? In C language, I have to use this for equality. If A equal to B, this is a condition. If this condition is true, then assign value of C to A, else assign value of A to C. This is readable, right? This is not readable. It is confusing. It will confuse a user whether this if is a variable or a keyword. This if is keyword, this if is variable. Similarly, this else is variable, but this else is keyword. So there is no concept like reserved words. So you can use reserved words as a variable names. So that's why the language becomes not readable. The main characteristic should be language should be readable. Once you go through the code, you should able to understand what that program is trying to do. So that is called readability. Next concept is called orthogonality. Orthogonality means you should be able to divide a problem into small problems, or you should able to combine various characteristics to make a new characteristics. For example, if you know the concept of if and if you know the concept of while, so you should able to write while loop in a if loop. Like this, in C language, we can combine while in if and for. You can write while loop in for loop in while loop, like this. Or very simple example of orthogonality is, suppose I have relational variables and Boolean variables, A and B. So it will check whether A and B have same values. It will return true, otherwise it will return false. Or I'll use A less than B and A less than C. If A is less than B and less than C, then only this condition is true. So what we are doing here, this is relational operator, and this is conditional operator, and we are combining these two features into a one feature to make create a new condition. So language features should be such that you should able to combine those language feature to create a new feature. So that is orthogonality. Next is reliability. Reliability means if your program is working for say 5 numbers, and if user entered 6th number and it shows error, so that is not a reliable program. A reliable program means for any input it should provide or give a desired output. So if you purchase a watch, and the reliable watch will show you exact time at anywhere you go, it should show you the correct time. But if it is lagging or leading by say 5 to 10 minutes or seconds, then that is not a reliable watch. So that reliability depends upon how you write a program, how you create a code. Are you considering boundary conditions? Like if you ask user to don't enter the values less than 0 or more than 10, you have to enter a value in 0 to 10 to get the correct answer. So that is reliable within the limits. So such reliability language should be reliable. Then maintainability, maintenance, this keyword comes after you deliver your software. It is not at the time of programming. So if your software is ready, you tested it, it's giving you fantastic results, it is reliable, orthogonal, readable, writable, all these properties are there, and you deliver that software, and then user want to enhance it. For example, you're using WhatsApp, right? And after say every month or after every 2 months, you'll get some updates. So initially it was only sending the messages. Now you can see whether that your friend has seen your message or not, that blue tick. Or now new features are getting added into the WhatsApp or any other apps, and that apps gets enhanced or updated. So such updations, if it is required, the language should support new updations in the without uh, putting everything into the thrash, without starting from the scratch. You should able to enhance the current version, current software with the, or it should able to what we can say, update to the new features, upgrade to the new features, not update, upgrade to the new features. So that is maintainability. Or extensibility, it also called extensibility. Software should be extensible. It should able to support new features, new classes, new objects, etc. Then generality, general means it should not be very specific. It will only work in such situations. It will need only 4 GB RAM or this software, and then only it will work. That is very specific limitations. But make your software generalized, or the language should be able to execute in general environment without needing some extra specific specifications of hardware and software. Uniformity, it should be uniform, structure should be uniform. Once you understand what is the syntax of language, you should able to create a program in that language uniformly. Extensibility, we have seen just maintainability and extensibility, same. Standardability means you have written, or the language you have created, designed your own language, but only you or your friends are familiar with that. So make that language a standard so that it is available globally, and everyone will use your language and extend it, adding new features to it. Implementability, this is very important feature. Language is ready, but unless and until it is supported by a translator, and you are not able to implement it, you are not able to produce output just with the source language or high level language. So you need a translator which can translate this language into low level language. These topics are very theoretical, so I, instead of just reading those things, I have to explain you in this way. So we have seen programming language paradigms. There are mainly Some books mention 4 paradigms: imperative or procedural, that is C language, then applicative or functional programming, that is Lisp, then rule-based language like Prolog, and object-oriented language like C++. So out of this, functional and logic languages are called declarative languages, and object-oriented imperative. Again, imperative, only C language is called here imperative or procedural, and object-oriented, they have considered a different paradigm. So in case of imperative or procedural, it is, as we have seen, it depends upon how program executes. It's a command driven or statement oriented language. Basic concept is machine state of values of all memory locations. Program executes sequentially, one line after another. On execution of set of statements, value of one or more memory locations change and machine enters into the new state. This is the syntax: statement 1, statement 2, statement 3. You can imagine any C program, main, then int a comma b comma c, a is equal to 5, b is equal to 10, a plus b, like this. So statement oriented language, each statement will execute and control will go to the next statement. Another version is functional language. It is also called applicative language. It is not similar to imperative. It looks at the function, and that must be applied to initial machine state by accessing the set of variables combined. Instead of reading this text, I'll just explain you what a function means. So when a function gets applied on a data, and it will send some result. In case of main, so in C language, we have main function, then main call add function, suppose, and this is add function. Add function calls input function. So the sequence is main calling function add calling function input. I hope you are familiar with function concept in C language. So input accepts input from the user and return the control to add function. Add function will perform addition and return the result to main, and main will display that result. In case of, this is also functional programming paradigm. In case of say Lisp or something, so if we have function add, then we have function subtract. So here 10 comma subtract, here 10 comma multiply. I'm just giving you a vague example, 3, 2. See what is the sequence of execution. First, multiply function will be applied on this data 3, 2. So 3 and 2 multiplication takes place. Result is 6. And then outside this bracket, here it is add function, add 10 comma sub. Like in school, we have to solve innermost bracket first. So this will execute first, mul 3 comma 2, and the result is 6. Then this function will execute sub 10 comma 6 is subtraction function. So 10 comma after subtraction, result is 10 minus 6, it is 4. And then you will perform addition function. So add 10 comma 4 is 14. So this is all happens internally. If you give this as an input, this is a command prompt suppose, and you'll get the output 14 immediately. In case of functional programming language, note that the sequence is from innermost to outermost. Sequence of execution is innermost function will execute first, then outermost, then outermost. So this function, this is a function, multiplication is a function, 3 and 2 is data. Function is applied on this data, and this result into a data. So this function is now acting as a data to outer function. This function will result into data to outer function. So this is a concept of functional programming. Innermost function will execute first. So here you can see function 1 is applied on a data, then function 2 is applied on this result of this function 1, and similarly nth function will apply on n-1 function. In case of rule-based programming, it executes by checking for present of certain enabling conditions, and when present, executing in appropriate action. So condition and action. So in case of Prolog, I can give you an example of a Prolog. In Prolog, we have the concept of rules and queries. So first we have to define rules. So rule number 1, suppose. Rule number 1 is, say, likes. Cat likes milk. Then likes. These are the rules. Instead of variables or functions, in the Prolog-like languages, the input is rules. Rule 1, rule 2, rule 3, like this. Cat like roti. Then likes, say, dog like roti. Likes, cow like grass. Horse like grass. So you can have a number of rules like this, and then there are the queries. For example, if the query is who likes grass, or this is a variable unknown, x like grass and question mark. If this is a query, so what are the values for x? What is the answer? Who likes grass? So the Python compiler will search these rules and it will do pattern matching. It will match this pattern with these two rules and it will get value for x as cow and horse. So value for x will be cow and horse. And suppose we want likes suppose we want to know cat likes what. So this can be a query, cat like what. So value of y will be roti and milk. So this is very simple example of a Prolog. These are the rules and these are the queries. Just you should know how there are different types of languages and how it works. So you want to know who likes grass, so it will return cow and horse. If you want to find out cat likes what, so it will again do a pattern matching and will find out the answer as milk and roti. And suppose you want likes, just tell me the answer of this. Cat y and x comma y. Sorry, likes x comma y. What will be the value of x here? What will be the value of x here?
Dog.
Correct. So how system will come to that decision is, first it will execute this cat likes what. So cat likes, so value of y will be roti, milk and roti. Then it will put milk here and try to find out a rule who likes milk. So only cat likes milk and cat is already present. Then we have to find out who likes roti. So when it will execute likes x comma milk and likes x comma roti, and for x comma roti it gets the answer dog. So this is how rule based language it works on these rules. And expert systems, decision making systems, like I have given you an example, telemedicine app, or which based on symptoms and you have to identify the disease, or you ask queries and you predict something. So those prediction type of apps can be developed using Prolog like languages. So we have condition and action, condition and action. These are the rules. Then comes object-oriented programming. Our syllabus is based on object-oriented programming paradigm. In C language, you have studied a way how program is written, how it gets executed, how you get results, how to convert algorithm to a program, or how to convert flowchart to a program. That was a procedural way, sequential way. And there is something called object-oriented programming. So the object-oriented programming allows one to construct a program the way we humans tend to think about the things. So in our daily life, we follow object-oriented approach instead of procedural approach. We'll come to that. So object-oriented model has its own fundamental entity, which is called object. So this diagram we have already seen. There is a type of language called scripting programming languages. So script languages means, have you heard about JavaScript, VBScript, or shell script? So these are syntax is very small, means it doesn't have too lengthy codes. A small program is written. So all scripting languages are programming language, do not require compilation step. They are interpreted languages, and instructions are written for a runtime environment, means actual execution time. Majorly used by web applications, system administrator, game applications, and multimedia. So there are different types of script languages, like server-side script languages, JavaScript, PHP, Perl. Client-side languages like JavaScript, Ajax, jQuery. System administration languages like Shell, Perl, Python. And Linux interface as Bash or C shell, shell script. So these languages are mainly used to write a program which is very close to the hardware, or it is interpreted by system itself. No need of a compiler. So let's start with object-oriented paradigm introduction. So here we'll see what is the need of object-oriented programming, what are the benefits of object-oriented programming, concepts, basic concepts of object-oriented programming, then general characteristics, and these are the concepts like object, class, method, inheritance, etc. So object-oriented was developed because some limitations were discovered in earlier approaches of programming. What was the earlier approach? Procedural approach. Then what are the limitations were discovered? So that we are going to see. To appreciate what OOPS does, OOPS means object-oriented programming, we need to understand what these limitations are and how they arose from traditional programming language. So first we'll look at the limitation. In procedural language, have you played this type of games? You have to build objects with these leotoids. So
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you can build any object of your choice. These are the just building blocks. You can build a house, you can build a car, you can build whatever you can imagine. So you can imagine these are the objects, and you can build any application of your choice that you want. Or one more example. In case of procedural programming, if I ask you to write a banking application, uh, in banking application, you have to write a function called withdraw. Withdraw function will ask user enter how many rupees you want to withdraw, and those rupees you have to subtract from my balance, and you have to show my balance. That is withdraw function. What is a deposit function? You ask user to enter an amount, and you have to add that amount into the balance, and you have to show my balance. That is deposit. And transfer, you will ask my how much amount I want to transfer and account number, like we do on Google Pay or Phone Pay, and you will transfer that amount to the new account. So it will be withdrawal from my one account and deposit in my another account. So this is a procedure language. Focus is on functions. Deposit function, withdraw function, transfer function. Are you getting? So you can write a system in this easy way. You will find it very easy. Yeah, I have to write these three functions. But in object-oriented way, how you are going to write this? Note that here these arrows were highlighted. Now here the objects are highlighted. So object is a customer. So instead of writing functions, focusing on a function, here focus is on object. So I can write a class customer. So customer should have name, address, account number, initial balance, etc. All those features. Then money is my class. Then account is my another class. So here focus is on the class, actual objects, real life or real time entities. And these functions come naturally with these objects. It is not compulsory to follow these functions. The objects will follow these functions. So to differentiate between object-oriented language and procedural language, why I'm giving this difference at the start of this object-oriented, you have studied procedural language and you are going to study object-oriented language. And after object-oriented language, you can differentiate between these two. But I'm giving you the difference very starting of object-oriented programming, because you will appreciate what object-oriented programming has than what is procedural programming that doesn't have. So in procedural programming, you can take example of C language. Program is divided into small parts which are called functions. We can think of a complete system as one function, and then we divide it into separate functions, and then again sub functions. So that smallest part is a function. In case of object-oriented programming, program is divided into parts which are called objects, small parts which are objects, like those building blocks. So in procedural programming, focus is on the collection of variables, data structures, subroutines. So it is a top-down approach. You can imagine a complete system, and then you try to divide it into subfunctions, then subfunctions, then subfunctions, like a tree. Root, then nodes, then again nodes, like this. Here in object oriented programming, you go reverse. You start from those objects, then build like how you built the bungalow of with a cards, playing cards. You start with ground level, and then you build on its top. Similarly, first you create small objects, combine those objects, create one more object, and then combine those objects. You can create another application like this. So object oriented break down the programming task into objects that expose behavior, data using interfaces. Procedural programming does not have any access specifiers. We are going to study access specifiers. Access specifiers means giving what we can say authenticity. So if my room is shared room, so my keys are with my roommates and as well as me. So only both of us are able to access that room. That is access specifier. If third person want to enter into the room, it has to wait in the lounge till me or my friend enters. So that control is with that is called access specifier. In procedural programming, data is open, it is available to all the functions, so no need of access specifier. But in object oriented programming like C++, Java, we have access specifiers like public, private, protected. We are going to learn what are these access specifiers is. POP does not have any proper way to hiding data. Data is not hidden. Data is less secure. Object-oriented programming provide data hiding and it is more secure. Overloading is not possible. Overloading is possible. It allows function overloading, operator overloading. We'll study these concepts in next units. Overloading means it shows example of polymorphism, doing multiple things at a time or with the same name. In procedural programming, most functions use global data for sharing, and that is accessed freely from function to function. So it is not possible in object-oriented programming to move data easily from function to function. Either you have to keep it private, public or private. Examples of object-oriented programming is C, VB, Fortran, Pascal, and object-oriented programming C++, Java, C#, C#.NET, VB.NET, etc. So today we'll stop here, and in next lecture we'll study what are the features of object-oriented programming and basic concepts of object-oriented programming. So today we have seen programming language paradigms. Mainly two types of programming language paradigms, imperative and declarative. Imperative focus on how program executes, and declarative focus on what is the problem. Then in imperative programming, we have seen it is divided into three parts: procedural, object oriented, and concurrent programming or parallel programming. And in declarative, logic, then functional and database programming paradigm. And we have seen what is the difference between procedural programming and object-oriented programming. Password for today's attendance is paradigm. P is small. You can see in a chat box. Roll number 58. She is present. '64.